Stop listening to the diplomats for a second. Look at the water. While politicians in suits are shaking hands in Oman right now, according to multiple military analysts, the Persian Gulf has entered one of its most dangerous maritime moments in years. Just 72 hours ago, on Tuesday, the tension between America and Iran reached a critical breaking point. 2 incidents, 1 day, 0 warning. First, an attack-capable drone approached America's flagship carrier. Hours later, a wolf pack of gunboats attempted to intercept a U.S. tanker. Intelligence analysts believe this wasn't just testing patience. It was a direct test of presidential resolve. This is the moment the timeline splits. Do we get a historic peace deal? Or are we watching the beginning of a global escalation? Here is the truth about the 24 hours that almost destabilized the Middle East. Rewind to Tuesday, midday. The USS Abraham Lincoln is patrolling international waters, 500 miles out. Iran just cast their vote. Now, America has to respond. I want to hear your perspective. Do you think the U.S. responds militarily or pushes for a diplomatic solution? Comment military response or diplomacy below. History is being written in the comments section. Stay tuned. Because if the situation changes tonight, you will hear it here first. Dismissed. It ignored every warning frequency. It ignored the jamming signals. It cut through the electronic noise and drove straight for the carrier's flight deck. U.S. officials state this was not a malfunction. It was a hostile approach profile. And when a weapons platform charges a U.S. nuclear carrier, there is only one response protocol. Then came the moment of truth. The drone didn't just fly close. Breaking intel indicates it attempted to lock its targeting radar onto the Lincoln. That is a clear engagement signal. America didn't hesitate. Launch sequence initiated. An F-35C Lightning II catapulted from the deck. This is the most advanced stealth fighter in human history. Against it, an Iranian drone made of fiberglass. This wasn't a prolonged engagement. The drone was neutralized almost immediately. The pilot locked on. Missile launch confirmed. The projectile tore across the sky, and the target was destroyed mid-air over the Arabian Sea. No warning shot, no diplomacy, just an immediate elimination of the threat. But while the debris was still falling into the water, Tehran was already planning its next move. Because observers warn this wasn't an accident. It was bait, and America just took it. Fast forward 4 hours. The sun is setting over the Strait of Hormuz. A U.S.-flagged tanker, the Stena Imperative, is moving heavy crude oil through the channel. Suddenly, the water starts churning. 6 fast-attack gunboats emerge from the shadows. This is the IRGC's signature move, the swarm. They cut across the tanker's bow. They flank the sides. The radio crackles to life with a chilling order. Stop your engines. Prepare to be boarded. Security experts explain what this means. They weren't checking paperwork. They were seconds away from putting Iranian boots on an American deck. It was a hostage scenario in the making. But this time, the script flipped. A U.S. guided missile destroyer, lurking nearby, positioned itself directly between the swarm and the tanker, exposing its 5-inch guns. The message was silent but undeniable. Interfere with this vessel, and you will face decisive military action. So, why take this risk? Why challenge a president who has a history of authorizing lethal strikes against top generals? Political strategists believe Tehran is making a calculated gamble. They think the administration is bluffing. They see talk of peace deals and assume the U.S. is desperate to avoid conflict. They think they can use pressure to force a better negotiation table. They are betting that the White House cares more about market stability than projection of power. But analysts warn this is a fatal miscalculation. They forgot who they are dealing with. This isn't an administration known for hesitation. Iran thinks they are playing poker, but the U.S. might be getting ready to flip the table. But to truly understand this gamble, we have to look away from Washington and look directly at the streets of Tehran. Regional analysts suggest this decision isn't just about foreign policy. It is about domestic stability. Think about the timing. The regime is currently facing immense internal economic pressure. Sanctions have squeezed the middle class. Inflation is eroding purchasing power. History teaches us a simple lesson about geopolitics. When a leadership faces trouble at home, they often look for a conflict abroad. Why? Because an external threat unifies the public. By challenging the U.S. Navy, the leadership projects strength. They send a message to their own population that they are still a dominant power. Strategists call this diversionary foreign policy. If they look weak in front of the U.S. Navy, they fear they will look weak to their own people. So, they are trapped in a cycle. They cannot afford to back down because their credibility is the only currency they have left. They need a win to show the public. And they decided that harassing a U.S. tanker was the fastest way to get it. But there is a third option few are discussing, yet it might be the most dangerous of all. What if the U.S. does nothing? Consider the message that silence sends. If an attack-capable drone targets a carrier and gunboats harass a tanker, and the response is just a diplomatic stern letter, the concept of deterrence evaporates. Geopolitical strategists warn that silence in this moment creates a vacuum. It tells every adversary in the region that the red lines have moved. It signals that harassing U.S. assets is now a low-cost, high-reward activity. This isn't just about one drone. It's about the precedent. If there is no consequence today, the next engagement won't be a warning shot. It will be a direct impact. By trying to avoid a small conflict now, inaction might actually guarantee a much larger, uncontrollable crisis 3 months down the road. The administration knows this. To do nothing is to invite chaos. And that brings us to right now. The secret talks in Oman. Mainstream news says the meeting is proceeding. They are missing the real story. Sources familiar with the situation confirm that last night negotiations had stalled completely. For 3 hours, the Iranian delegation threatened to leave because the U.S. demanded limits on their missile program. Only a desperate last-minute intervention saved the meeting. But sitting in the shadows is Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu is reportedly advising the president right now. Don't sign. Take decisive military action to neutralize the threat. And we need to be very clear about why Israel is pushing so hard right now. For Washington, a bad deal with Iran is a political embarrassment. But for Israel, security officials view it as an existential timeline. Israel's intelligence community operates on a different clock than the West. They aren't looking at this week's drone attack. They are looking at next year's capability. Their argument to the White House is specific. Every day that the U.S. engages in diplomatic talks is another day Iran's centrifuges keep spinning. Israel's red line logic is simple. You stop them now when the cost is high, or you stop them later when the cost is impossible. That is why Netanyahu is reportedly advising against a deal. The message from Tel Aviv is blunt. Lead the response now, so we don't have to initiate one later. But there is one more player in this room that nobody sees: China. Intelligence leaks suggest that a secure call took place early this morning between Beijing and Mar-a-Lago. President Xi Jinping is concerned. Why? Because 90% of China's oil passes through that strait. Let's pause and look at the map. Why does everyone care so much about this narrow strip of water? It's not just about gas prices at the pump. This is about systemic economic survival. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's jugular vein. 20% of the global oil supply flows through here every single day. Economic experts explain the chain reaction. If this water is mined or blocked, it doesn't just mean expensive commute. It means the cost of shipping food, manufacturing plastics, and powering logistics grids skyrockets overnight. For the White House, this is a domestic nightmare. High energy costs are the fastest way to derail an economic agenda. Inflation returns. Approval ratings drop. Tehran knows this. They aren't targeting ships. They are targeting the economy itself. They understand that in modern warfare, you don't need to sink a navy to win. You just need to make the cost of conflict too expensive for your opponent to sustain. Now, take a look behind closed doors. Inside the White House Situation Room tonight, sources describe a split forming. This isn't a unified room. It is a battleground of ideas. On one side, you have the strategic hawks. Their argument is simple. Deterrence is collapsing. They believe that if the U.S. does not respond with decisive kinetic action immediately, Iran will continue to escalate until lives are lost. They argue that the only language the adversary respects is force. On the other side, you have the economic pragmatists. They are looking at the markets. They warn that a retaliatory strike could spiral into a regional conflict that drags on for years, drains the treasury, and shatters the global recovery. They argue that falling into a tit-for-tat cycle is exactly the trap Tehran has set. And sitting in the middle is the president. He is hearing both sides. The pressure is immense. Every phone call, every briefing paper carries the weight of potential conflict. He knows that whatever order he gives in the next 24 hours cannot be taken back. The pen is hovering over the paper, and the room is holding its breath. But is the choice really just between all-out war or doing nothing? Military doctrine suggests there is a fourth option, one that is rarely discussed on the evening news, but is frequently debated in the Pentagon. It's called the surgical calibration. This is a limited, highly specific military response designed to signal strength without triggering a full-scale conflict. What does this look like? Instead of bombing widespread targets, the U.S. could launch a cyber operation to disable a specific power grid. Or they could target the exact radar station that guided the drone. Or they could seize an Iranian vessel in retaliation, effectively trading a ship for a ship. The logic here is proportionality. It allows the president to show the world he is not afraid to act, satisfying the hawks, while keeping the strike limited enough that Iran doesn't feel forced to launch a total war. It's a way to say, "We are watching you," without burning down the house. However, this is a high-wire act. The risk with a limited strike is that the enemy might not see it as limited. If a calculation is off by a few inches, a symbolic shot can turn into a mass casualty event. And then there is no turning back. If escalation is coming, it won't be announced on the evening news until it's too late. But if you know where to look, it will be signaled. Here are the 3 indicators you need to watch in the next 48 hours. First, watch the rhetoric. If the administration shifts from monitoring the situation to phrases like severe consequences, that is the diplomatic code for imminent action. Second, watch the assets. Don't just look at the carriers. Look for heavy transport aircraft moving into regional bases. Logistics always precede airstrikes. Third, watch the markets, specifically gold and oil futures. Institutional investors often have better intel than the public. If you see a sudden, unexplained spike in these commodities while the news is quiet, it means the smart money is bracing for impact. So here we stand. The threat is neutralized. The gunboats have retreated. But the clock is ticking. The president has 48 hours to make the biggest decision of his second term. Option A. Authorize a military response against the bases. Option B. Push for a diplomatic solution to de-escalate. Iran just cast their vote. Now, America has to respond. I want to hear your perspective. Do you think the U.S. responds militarily or pushes for a diplomatic solution? Comment military response or diplomacy below. History is being written in the comments section. Stay tuned, because if the situation changes tonight, you will hear it here first. Dismissed.